Here's what it looks like within Pro Tools. I've just brought up a single stereo track where I've placed my mixdown file, and underneath the dynamics we brought up Maxim, which is their limiter. So here's the first thing you'd normally do. I normally just bump this down just to minus 0.1, something like that, so that way we just never really hit the absolute ceiling. And just like any compressor or limiter, your job is to pull down that threshold until you start seeing some gain reduction. And you'll see the attenuation over here. You'll also see it across here. So we just want to maximize this because right now, let's play the song. You can see we have probably about 4 dB, something like that, of headroom. So let's start pulling down that threshold. You can see across here, now we're getting right up to that ceiling.
And the peace we share was already there.
So it depends on how aggressive you want to make that. You can see that attenuation right there. We're hitting about 6 dB. That might be a little over the top. I might just reset that.
To lay your heart right on the line. Cause I know you've had your share of hurts along the way. But at the end of the day,
okay, so let's hear it without.
You gotta trust someone.
So imagine putting this track up against this track. Which ones sound better to your listeners' ears,
Look
right?
into my eyes and
we could do the same thing over here in Logic Audio. And we have our stereo mixdown file here, and on the stereo channel right here we brought up a limiter, a stereo spread here, and then the multipressor, which is something we haven't looked at before, but it is basically a compressor. It's basically 4 compressors side by side, and it's frequency dependent, so you can compress your lows, your low mids, your high mids, and your highs completely independently. So let's look back here at the limiter. Exactly the same thing here. The output level might just duck that down there, and then you would basically do exactly the same thing as we saw before. Oh, sorry, we need to activate that.
since the day your heart was open. And
you can see the amount of reduction right there.
That greater love was leading your heart to mine.
We could do the same thing that we saw in Reason a little while ago, which is to spread out your highs and narrow your lows. So for example, if we would take this to basically 0, let me just type that in. That means that the low end, which is defined by this slider across here, will not get spread out, but the high end will get spread out between the left and the right hand side. So that's a way that you can spread things out. Again, all of these should be very, very subtle. If you have to spread everything out super wide, that means you have not done your job in terms of just panning the regular tracks. So these are these two. Let's concentrate over here on this multipressor. And like I said before, it's an independent compressor which can be for your lows, low mids, high mids, and highs. And then you can decide where you want that crossover point to be. So if you're doing a dance heavy song or something like that, you could absolutely compress the heck out of your low end and do some makeup gain. Actually, let's just have a listen to this song and you can see this in action. So let's turn it on.
And the peace we share was already there.
Again, you're not looking for really big changes here, just a little bit. And then you could bring up the makeup gain if you like. And obviously listen to the low end there. Multiband compressors are EQs. I mean, if you want to boost up any of these particular bands, you can definitely do it here with the makeup gain. So again, steady as it goes, just little changes. But I mean, obviously if you're doing dance music and you want to crush the low end, that would be the way where you'd bring down this and then just boost up this to get a lot more bottom end, a lot more compressed bottom end. And then in terms of the top end, maybe you don't want to compress that as much. But one thing I would really suggest is that you have some of your favorite songs placed parallel to your stereo mixdown, not to compress them, but just to A/B them. So if you're doing, say, a dance song that you would just love to hear on the dance floor to get people up off their seats, get the most popular dance song and then just import it here so that you can listen to it and A/B between your song and that song. And that way, any of these adjustments you make, you can just go back and forth and hear how the pros are doing it and whether they are really crushing the bottom end or they're maybe not. Having some reference mixes next to your mix is just a great way to A/B and to see how you're stacking up against the stuff that you would normally hear on the radio. The history of mastering seems to have really gone this route. Firstly, it was never really tackled by the artists or even by the recording studios. There were just a select few mastering studios in LA and New York with folks like Bernie Grundman, Doug Sachs, and Bob Ludwig. Mastering was this kind of black art that was really only a select few really knew how to do. Then some of the DAWs and even some of the hardware recorders started including mastering tools within them. A number of standalone suites appeared like Ozone and T-Rax, but now there are completely plug-and-play options where you can just upload a song and it'll pop out a mastered file. I'll put some links on this page to some of the solutions available. So right about now, you should be swimming in file formats and how all this works together, especially when you're thinking about archiving your song. Just be grateful we're not living in the age of tape where you needed to store 2-inch multi-track tapes and worried about tapes breaking down into kind of a gooey mess. That was the way things were back in the day.